Hey forum, my name is Manny, aka CascadeScents. Welcome to another video. Of course, it's 2020, so it's a new year, which also means it's a new tier list. And as you see by the title, this one is on fragrance bottle design. Now, to be quite honest, fragrance bottle design and or presentation is something I don't really talk about on this channel too much of anymore, but I used to do it back in the day when I was doing a lot of single reviews, and I honestly kind of miss that. And it's time to have some fun with this in a really casual form. So yet again, here we go with a tier list. And if you don't know how a tier list works, you're going to look at the options on the bottom. You're going to rank them from F to S, F being fail and S being super or special. So the higher you are on the tier list, the better the design is. Now I could easily do this based on scent, but a lot of the fragrances here are kind of cheaper and or more expensive, or way more expensive or way cheaper than other ones. And I just feel like things will get pretty messy as far as trying to rank things based on how they smell versus what they're worth. So it's not like I'm opposed to doing tier lists based off of scent alone. That's all I used to do. It's just I want to try something new this time. Again, it's 2021. I also made this list, and in order for some of these options to be a part of the list, they have to be men's offerings that are well known as far as the scent themselves and or the name and or the brand. So that's within the community and out of the community by just mainstream people or casuals. So if you feel like I'm missing something, let me know in the comments. I'm looking at this list and I really do feel like Drakkar Noir should be somewhere on here. Sorry, Ashton, but let me carry on nonetheless anyway. We're going to start backwards because that's fun. Here we have Nautica Voyage. Of course, it's everyone's favorite fresh cheapie. Simple-ish bottle design, and just knowing the fact that this stuff is worse now because it no longer has a metal cap. It has a cheap feeling plastic cap. I definitely feel even worse about this stuff. Again, scent still awesome, still lasts, still awesome for the price. It's just that blue hue juice in that standard like kind of third circle bottle is just not really wowing me whatsoever, but it looks very much like the scent it is, and I kind of have to give it points for that. I think I'm going to give Nautica Voyage a D tier. Next up we have Versace Parfum, and Versace Parfum kind of started this trend for Versace as far as the rest of the Versace Parfum line, and that is each of them are clones of things, clones and or their own interpretations of previous DNAs, but since this is the one that got everything crack-a-lackin', that's why it is on the list. Again, like the previously mentioned Voyage, you have a blue hue here with a clear glass bottle, but this stuff to me just screams nouveau riche with the Versace logo in the middle, which makes a lot of sense because Versace likes to spam that in a lot of things that they also do, and because I think it looks good for the people that actually buy that stuff and as a result buy this. I think this is actually a good bottle, feels good in hand, sprayer's okay too. Versace Parfum, B tier. Anyway, let's move on to the next scent form. This one is also by Versace. This is Versace Man Eau Fresh. Of course, this is not the original in the line, but since that stuff is not remotely iconic as this and is also discontinued, that's why we are looking at this guy right here, which a lot of people seem to love. And again, I'm really not going to speak on its scent lately, but what I will say is that I do not love that presentation. I don't know, it's just not flattering to me. Square with the ridges, and the cap is also uniform to it as well, but it's just not, again, flattering. I think I'm gonna give Man Eau Fresh an E tier. Anyway, for moving on to the next bottle, this one is Tobacco Vanille by Tom Ford, but to be fair, you can use any of the gold label brown bottle Tom Ford private blends here in this place. I just picked Tobacco Vanille because it's Tobacco Vanille, but it's just an iconic design that I feel like enough casuals know of as well. And if you don't believe me, of course, this stuff is heavily spammed throughout the Sephora website, and on top of that, this stuff is starting to pop up at more Sephora locations out there. And if you want to take it a step further, we're starting to see private blends here in Southern Ontario, Canada at fucking drugstores. Yes, drugstores. Shout outs to Shoppers Drug Mart. They have some of the more approachable private blends. But I'm just saying, you're eventually going to see something like this. And it looks like a stamp. I think it looks beautiful. Like, to me, out of the private blend collection, the 50 ml version is the most flattering looking. And I think that's an outright design choice on Estee Lauder's part. The 100 ml doesn't remotely look as sexy with the bottle sticker on the side, like the wide side instead of the more square side that is more the same width of the 50. I think it's them just being cute and saying, hey, we need to move more 50 mLs because the dollar per ml value ratio is a lot shittier there. And I swear it's working. That's why I mainly see 50 mLs kind of spammed everywhere, whether it's on Instagram and or other YouTubers. Yeah, 50 is just a lot sexier than the 100. And don't even get me started on the decanter. That big 250 ml thing, you can't even spray that shit. So that's why we are looking at this one. And I have no choice. I think it's perhaps the sexiest looking presentation on this list. That's why it's going in S. Nothing else to discuss here. Moving on to the one for men by Dolce & Gabbana. And this stuff right here is what my high school life smelled like. Like high school locker rooms everywhere in this area, I feel like smelled like Dolce & Gabbana, the one for men. This was like the Christmas present if you are being good, I swear. And what can I say? It smells great. Nice cardamom, nice tobacco, a little bit of grapefruit. It's just pretty stuff that everyone just seems to love. But again, we're not really talking about its scent. We're talking about the bottle, and I don't hate the bottle. I wish there was a little bit more going on to a certain extent, but it is nice, minimalist, and is kind of understated, which is kind of weird considering it's called the one. You figured it would be a little bit more flashy, but maybe it just wants to sell you on its scent. You know, the scent will speak for itself. But nonetheless, the bottle still feels nice in hand. I don't remotely hate it. I think it's just overall good design. I think it gets a B tier. Moving on to the next bottle, here we go. This one is Terre de Mes by Hermes. And of course, scent-wise, this is one of my favorite scents, period. But bottle-wise, it might not look like much at first. Normal, clear-ish looking bottle. And then you have the orange Terre de Mes font right there with the yellowish juice. And based on that alone, it might be a C, no better. But of course, with Hermes, if you know the brand itself, very smart. And it's almost like the little things that matter. Very subtle stuff. And if you were to dissect that bottle furthermore, if you've actually held that thing in hand, just look underneath it. I think that H right there is a nice touch. Very Hermes to go a little bit more understated. And if you look at the top, that is not a normal cap. That thing twists on and off, so you still protect the sprayer itself and you're never going to lose the cap. Like, what else do you want? So I like the design choice, and sometimes function is fashion as far as the top of it there. I have to give this stuff an S tier. Just very amazing choices from Hermes. You gotta love it. Now moving on to Spice Bomb though, and this one looks like what it actually says it is, and that's a bomb. Or a grenade rather, yeah, spice grenade. But as far as functionality, you have to give it that too with its sprayer system. Like the pin, kind of like you'd pull from a grenade to make sure it's ready for detonation when you throw it. Here it's ready for spraying, and I think that is really, really cool. Is the fragrance presentation a little tacky? Yeah, but it sells for the people that it's meant to be sold to. Again, a little bit of function also can't hurt either. I like Spice Bomb. I don't think it's that tacky, and I think it deserves a B tier as well. Moving on, here we have a controversial one. This one is Sauvage by Christian Dior. And Sauvage to me is what they want Fahrenheit to be, but again, in the 2010s. The scent itself is not remotely in the same family. Of course, this scent is more taking up after Bleu de Chanel as far as a versatile blue offering, but what I'm saying is as far as the bottle itself and what that represents as far as what's finna be a bestseller throughout the decade, yeah, this is without a doubt the flagship men's scent of Christian Dior. You know, for as recent as 6-7 years ago. So like Fahrenheit, you have that light to dark as you go up transition hue. Here focusing on the bluer, fresher aspects, of course, because that's what the scent is like. And at the top, you have a cap similar to the La Collection Privé, so that's kind of high-end, I guess. But none of this presentation feels, you know, original, just like the scent isn't original. So I guess it's kind of poetic in that way, but definitely feels nice in hand, feels of good quality. So I also have no choice but to rank it in the B tier. Moving on, here we have Pie by Givenchy, and I actually love this bottle. I'm an OG Pie fan. I've had 2 of these bottles now over the years, and what can I say? A lot of memories here, but again, I just like looking at the thing. I think it's just a nice, flattering, unique bottle design. Definitely looks like something out of, you know, an OG Greek Hellenistic period. Yeah, I think it's dank. But I will say this, I do wish that it had a cap just because I don't see why it can't have one. I mean, the handle is cool, but maybe you just think that there is too many moving parts there. I don't know. But since that's only a minor gripe and I still love this bottle design, I think it just makes sense for the scent. Pie also gets an A tier. Moving on, we have Burberry London for Men, and this stuff is a standard-ish bottle with a Burberry wrap around it. I actually like it as far as the protection it kind of gives the fragrance. Admittedly, it's not the most flattering looking thing, but it definitely is branding. You're definitely going to know that it is a Burberry based on if you know how Burberry designs look like outside of fragrance. So I guess that's poetic, but it's just not a very flattering bottle, despite, again, that function. So you know what? I'm just going to give London for Men a C tier. Moving on, here we have L'Homme by Yves Saint Laurent, and honestly, you know, it's not my favorite bottle either. Sure, I could pick La Nuit de l'Homme as well, and both are equally iconic amongst fragrance enthusiasts and casuals, but I just picked L'Homme because it's the OG. Whatever. But yeah, it doesn't feel like the most impressive thing, but I guess the hexagon is cool. It's just a bottle. It works. You know, I'm not going to hate on it either. Again, probably just a C tier as well. Moving on to the next fragrance, here we go with L'Odyssée Pour Homme by Issey Miyake, or some noobs like to call it L'Odyssée, you know, District of Columbia or some shit like that. Nah, I'm just playing with y'all, but for real, L'Odyssée Pour Homme. I just feel like presentation-wise, this stuff is too tall for its own good. Kind of gets annoying for me, always knocking it over. And on top of that, I just don't think it looks that flattering. I mean, there was more flattering 90s, you know, matte kind of bottles, in my personal opinion, some of which are on this list. It's just what it is. I'm just saying I don't think that the presentation does this great scent of Once Upon a Time any favors. That's why I'm going to give this stuff an E tier. Anyway, moving on, here we have Le Mal from Jean-Paul Gaultier. And just to clarify for y'all, we're looking at the bottle presentation rather than the presentation as a whole, because I will say that the can opening is quite badass presentation, even a lot better than a lot of niche offerings out there. Again, if we're just to take a look at just box alone. But for me, as someone who largely identifies as a straight cis male, to see that on my list, not a fan, not a fan. I don't need a torso with a crotch kind of staring back at me. I guess it's part of why I've only ever owned one fragrance from this line in Ultramal, but I couldn't bear the thought of furthermore looking at it, and that's why I got rid of that too. That's why I never owned Le Mal itself. So to a lot of y'all saying that presentation doesn't matter, I guess it does, at least for me. Not opposed to owning a decant of this, I guess, but again, just don't like the fucking bottle. This stuff is a fail, straight up for me. F tier. Again, some people might dig that bottle for X, Y, and Z reasons. I told you why I don't for me. It's just not something I want to look at. If you're triggered, cool. Make your own tier list and let me know what it looks like by adding me on Twitter or Instagram or something like that. Just send them that way. Again, at CascadeScents. Anyway, moving on to Invictus by Paco Rabanne. So here we have more of that corny, you know, nouveau riche, youthful presentation. Invictus, we're stuff of champions, you know, like Spice Bomb, here's a grenade, or Le Mal, here's a man. Like, it's just not subtle, you know, just this fucking trophy. But I will say this, as far as one of those sprayers that are kind of built into the rest of the presentation itself, I think this is one of the better ones, honestly. And while I used to loathe this presentation when it initially came out, it is kind of improving in my books. Like, I don't hate it as much recently. So, you know what, Invictus, D tier. Anyway, moving on to Gucci Guilty Pour Homme from Gucci. And I don't think that this presentation is doing Gucci any favors here either. I just don't think it's flattering at all. I guess it looks like a flask that you can potentially drink out of, kinda too, like a more extendo one. But yeah, it's just not it. Like this more toned down monochromatic design. I don't think it's as bad as, you know, L'Odyssée and stuff like that, but it's kind of sad that at the same time that this stuff came out years later. So for something to come out 2000s, 2010s, just looking weak like this, just really sucks. But again, I just think it's only shit enough to be in D tier. Or what am I saying? I honestly like Invictus and Nautica Voyage a little bit better. God honest truth. E tier. E tier. Fuck it. Next up on the list here we have Fahrenheit, and honestly, Fahrenheit looks fucking beautiful. Like, you're gonna turn up the heat with this one. You know, the presentation says it, the scent says it as well. Everything just flows, it just works. And I'm glad that Dior is still not discontinuing this one, because they tend to do that to a lot of more recent fragrances. And or regionalize them, and or reformulate them. And sure, this one has been reformulated, but again, the bottle still looks OD, which is what this list is about. So guess what? Fahrenheit is also S tier. Anyway, moving on to Versace Arrows. So I think this is the last appearance Versace is making on this list, and honestly, it's the best one that they've made so far. To me, this is what Versace is. Loud, colorful, unmistakable, doesn't look like anything else that people are putting out. Not saying I'm a fan of Versace clothing, but once you see some of their motifs, you know it's them. And I honestly think that this blue-green teal just looks OD with, you know, the Medusa in the middle. Yeah, this is Versace. I love it. I think it's sick. So you know what? Arrows, A tier. Anyway, moving on to Eau Sauvage, and this is one of the OG Dior scents for men. I think the other one is what? Jules? But like, this is the one I think of when I think of like the OG Dior's. And I still think it looks sick. Again, that wavy kind of flask look. I think it's pretty flattering, but of course when it comes to Dior nowadays, attacking more of that accessible nouveau riche market, this is for like the OGs. This is for your like cool grandpa. Like, you have to be sophisticated AF in order to rock this, in my opinion. And even own it. I just don't think it looks like a fuckboy fragrance bottle, you know? But I must say, I do like it more than the Sauvage of today, so I guess I also have to give it an A tier. Moving on to the next one on the list, here we go. Probably the greatest cologne fragrance of all time, as far as, you know, it being prolific amongst casuals. We got Cool Water, clone or interpretation, whatever you want to call it. Something that was clearly inspired from something else, let's just say that. But yeah, the bottle itself wasn't inspired from something else. I just think it's a nice flattering bottle. It works for a nice budget fragrance. Hasn't really changed too much in the last 2-3 decades. Cool Water is good people. It's a good bottle. I think it gets a C tier. Next up, here we have CK1. Here we have, again, more of that matte 90s look. This is like the OG unisex fragrance that kind of got cracking for everyone. Like niche brands out there who have this unisex approach, where would they be maybe if it wasn't for something like this, as, you know, catch-all / revolutionary as this? I don't know, and I still think it smells great today. But again, we're not talking about the scent. We're talking about that bottle, and while it's clean, it's CK, it's just a little boring to me. What can I say? And to be fair, a lot of things were boring back then. But I still don't hate it. It's just, it doesn't look sexy on my cabinet or on my vanity. It's not going to be a conversation starter. But again, still don't hate it. I think D tier is fair. Next up, another 90s favorite. Here we go with Chrome. And Chrome, again, I don't think the presentation is doing it any favors as far as it just being visually appealing and or someone would be sexy or feel a certain way by just showing this off on their vanity. So yeah, what can I say? Sorry, Brad. That's Triple Ink if you don't know who he is. Love that dude. But yeah, I think just on design it has to get a D tier. Next up, we have a favorite from Hugo Boss. This is Boss Bottled, and ooh, Boss Bottled, to me, I always like that design. I think that it feels really nice in hand. You know it's Hugo Boss as well, so good branding on their part. I just have like zero complaints. It's just, I don't love it, you know, but it definitely looks flattering. I think people do rate it overall. You know what? I've got to go with a nice A tier for Hugo Boss, so shout outs to them. Anyway, moving on, here we have Bleu de Chanel from Chanel, and of course you guys know I love this scent, but I'm not sure how I feel about this bottle, God honest truth. Like, I love Chanel scents in general just because I'm open-minded and, you know, the female scents are cool, but I am kind of salty how them bottles look extra cool, and I see some of the men's bottles and I'm like, yikes. Like the Numero 5 labels and or the Coco labels, all that just looks like OD, and then I see Allure Homme Sport or I see this and I'm like, ugh. But I do take solace in the fact that this stuff feels nicer in hand, and I definitely think that I still like it more than Sauvage. I guess I just somewhat lament this just because if I have some S tiers on this list, I feel like some of the women's Chanel bottles are like S tier. And maybe that's what I want out of Chanel men's stuff. But admittedly, this is one of the prettier men's Chanel bottles, and of course, perhaps the more or most popular one. So Bleu de Chanel, A tier. Way too clean, way too clean. Next up here we have Creed Aventis, and Aventis has hella quality control issues. That's no fun, both with the scent and the bottle presentation. Some of the caps just feel hella loose, some of the paint is always chipping, even when you do get that stuff for the first time. It's just unacceptable, but presuming I'm looking at a pristine Aventis here, I presume it's going to feel a few $100 in hand. I mean, not really, but nice enough that I really like it in hand and that it looks super dope. Again, that black tape with the silver label going around it with the Creed font above it. It doesn't get old when you are into fragrance. There's just something about Creed as far as their scents and or the look that just gets you. They're just very charming. So you know what? I'm going to give Creed an S tier. I have no choice. Aventis or Aventis, just way too good. Next up, moving on, here we have Armani Code, and this was one of my high school favorites back in the day. I'm glad it's still kicking around and they are still making flankers and people are actually buying them, so shout outs to Giorgio Armani. And not only did I enjoy this scent, I enjoyed the presentation as well. I think it's cool to make something like long and cylindrical like that and not make it look as phallic as other bottles too, because you know, kind of just goes like that. It kind of curves outward. Shiny black bottle with a matte black cap. It's just looks amazing. Again, barring the scent, it just looks like something I would want to have on my vanity. So you know what? A good A tier for Armani Code. Next up here we have Bulgari Acqua di Parma. And Acqua di Parma I think smells OD. I think it's one of Jacques Cavalier's greatest creations. Love the flankers too, just amazing stuff overall. Bulgari is a brand I just think it's really strong, like in and out of fragrance. But admittedly, I wasn't a big fan of this stuff coming up. It's a circle that doesn't even stand. I'm like, why would I want this taking space on my vanity or dresser or something like that? Not a fan. But of course, years go by. I've owned a bottle of this. I've owned the flankers too. It feels bloody nice in hand, and I want to say more about the integrated sprayer. This is perhaps the best use of an integrated sprayer here. Something that looks complete without needing a cap for it, of course. So I guess my main gripe is I just wish it stood, because I don't hate the way the rest of it looks either. So for Acqua di Parma, I'm feeling a nice good C tier, yeah. Next up here we have Mugler Amen, and Amen. Of course, the first thing that comes to anyone's mind who is very familiar with this line is that under the rubber flask, you have that sprayer there that you don't really have access to just because you have to press down through the rubber strap in order to get a spray out of it. Often you have to spray kind of hard and it just feels like it sucks, so what can you do? But if you're thorough with it, if you are diligent with how you spray, I don't think the sprayer is as bad as people lament. And as a matter of fact, if you feel like cutting it open, the sprayer is actually quite powerful. But of course, we're talking about the presentation you get, not the one that you have to create. And with that being said, I still like it. Some people hate the fact that it comes in this rubber that will lament feels cheap, but for me, it is a designer fragrance after all. I'm not trying to say that, you know, this is remotely luxury per se, because I guess affordable luxury is that, but that's an oxymoron in itself. I don't mind it feeling kind of quote-unquote inexpensive. I do like the functionality of a more protective shell, because admittedly, I will get kind of squirrely about bringing bottles everywhere and stuff, and I just feel like Amen's one of those things that I don't mind just throwing in my gym bag or something like that. So yeah, I like it, but I'm not sure if I like it quote-unquote that much. So you know what? I'm gonna give it a C tier. Sorry, Mugler stands, I know you guys are out there. That being said, here we go with Allure Homme Sport by Chanel. And part of why I put Allure Homme Sport on this list is just historically from the blocks I've been around. I really do feel like Allure Homme Sport is the most popular out of the line and perhaps the most iconic. You might argue that Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme is a better scent, and or the OG Allure Homme, and or Allure Homme Edition Blanche, and or Allure Homme Sport Cologne. But I'm just saying, I was around 16, 17 years ago, and if you had this scent, you were it. Like if the one for men by Dolce & Gabbana was what you got, say if you were a good boy, you were a really, really, really good boy if you got this shit for Christmas. Overall, it's a nice scent, of course, but we're not really talking about that. So overall with the bottle, I feel like it is really clean. I just feel like I wish I got a little bit more Chanel branding here, and it's just not that visible on the cap. So I guess that's why I kind of don't like it, but I still really like it as far as a sporty driven scent design. So you know what? Allure Homme Sport is a B tier. Anyway, here we go with the second last offering. It's Acqua di Joe by Giorgio Armani. Again, the last of, I guess, the matte 90s fresh scents here. It's cool because if we want to admit something is fresh, or if it smells blue nowadays, it will also be in a blue bottle. But back in the 90s, they used clear and or matte stuff, and I guess that's cool. You know it's an Armani here. It's a nice, sleek design. Looks accessible, but flattering enough that you want to herald it. Yeah, I don't really hate this stuff whatsoever. It's just not mind-blowing. So Acqua di Joe to me gets a B tier. And last but not least, 1 million, perhaps the most obnoxious bottle here outside of Lamal. But honestly, I can't help but love this stuff. Like a gold bar scent, come on. It just made you feel like going out, ballin', you know? Making a toast and whatnot. Rest in peace Dalla, if you remember him. But yeah, I just think of ballin' shit when I think of this scent. Or not even this scent, rather this bottle. That's how iconic it is in my mind. That's how much I like it. And it's not that bad as far as an integrated sprayer design. So for me, not a whole lot here to hate. And I know this might trigger some people because this is something that is a polarizing bottle design, but you know what? Fuck y'all. 1 million is S tier. But there it is for them. Hopefully you enjoyed this tier list on fragrance bottle designs. I might get back to a tier list where I focus on just a scent, but I figured I would have fun with y'all for once in a while, just because again, I really haven't discussed presentation on this channel in quite some time. So I really hope you enjoyed this. If you guys have any ideas for tier lists in the near future, also let me know in the comment section below. And of course, let me know where you would put everything as well. And as always, again, if you enjoyed yourself, also like this video, subscribe if you've yet to, and if you want to make the most out of the subscription, also ring that bell so videos like this get to you ASAP. And until then, I don't know what else to say. So thank you again for the ongoing support. Take care for now. Peace out. Bye. My name is Manny. Wear your fragrances.